Welcome back to the channel, everyone. In this video, I'm going to talk about how mining Reddit for business ideas is a bad approach and what to do instead. So here's why mining Reddit for ideas doesn't really work. It sounds very good in theory, and more than that, it sounds very easy. The advice that I've seen in my very limited time as a solopreneur is how simple it is to go online, go to Reddit, look for business ideas, find what people are complaining about, and you just build a business to solve that problem. That felt sensible in the beginning because it was so simple, but in reality, it ends up being pretty terrible advice. When I first found out about this approach, I decided to go on to Reddit and see how people were doing this, and it was pretty astonishing how horrible the results were. Now, to be totally fair, I don't know what all of Reddit looks like. It could be that this approach works out in particular circumstances, but I'm pretty doubtful of that. When I went on to Reddit and I would drop into whatever community, I would see people fish around to farm for business ideas and to start asking people these types of questions that don't feel really genuine. A lot of these questions stand out in the wrong way. They're people who drop into an existing community and start asking generic questions about, hey, whatever you're dealing with in this community, what do you hate about it? What do you wish could be done better? Is there anything that could help you? And all those questions feel like a product interview, where someone is approaching you, asking you for opinions, asking you for your experience, but it's not generally to help you. It doesn't take long for you to drop into Reddit, find a subreddit, and start to see that people are very on guard. There is a huge aspect to Reddit where people just want to exist there without being sold to, without being mined for ideas, and it becomes so obvious so quickly. So for example, I would take a look at this approach myself, and when I first heard about it, I thought, hey, let me give it a shot. Let me see if this actually works. And I quickly started to get the feeling that it doesn't really work. I would see people dropping into subreddits, asking questions, but the questions didn't really feel organic. A lot of these questions felt like some kind of product interview where they would drop in and say, hi, everybody. Let's take photography, for example. Hi, everybody. What do you do in photography that is a bit of a pain in the ass and you wish it were easier? What are pain points in photography that you wish would be resolved? All of those immediately set people off. No matter the subreddit that I saw this happen in, people would immediately start calling that person out for their bullshit. They would say things like, oh, get out of here, this is spam. And that was a word that I would see said a lot. So that made me feel a bit uneasy about that approach. So what did I do? I tried it out and it felt horrible. It felt so terrible because it didn't feel genuine. It felt cringy, I guess would probably be the best way to put it. I would drop into these subreddits and start to ask questions, and immediately people would call me out, and I totally understand why they would. They just want to exist. They don't want to have to deal with people like me figuring out what they deal with and how I can make money off of that. Ultimately, tell me your problems so I can build a solution for it and then charge you for it. Nobody in these communities really wants to hear that. It could work in some instances, maybe, but it really doesn't feel like a great approach. People can tell very quickly when you're trying to extract value from a group as opposed to contributing. And a lot of this approach is extracting value and not so much contributing. It's also worth pointing out that a lot of the conversations that happen on Reddit feel more geared towards the B2C space, the business to customer space, and not the B2B space, business to business. I'm much more interested in B2B, so didn't take me long to realize that that might not be the fit for me. Also, as I started scrolling around Reddit, it didn't feel like a lot of business owners were complaining about stuff. There weren't a lot of conversations that I noticed where business owners were organically coming together to have conversations. So I think that approach ends up being pretty bad advice. It's oversimplified and doesn't speak to any of the nuances. So I don't see that approach as being very effective, and there are other ways that are a better use of my time. So generally speaking, people hate being sold to, but they love being helped. And my first instinct is always to help people. It's always something that felt very natural to me, and it makes me feel good knowing that I made someone else feel good. I've also always loved meeting people and talking to them, and that's why I think this particular approach feels so natural to me. A better alternative to the Reddit approach is value-based networking. Value-based networking is just regular networking, but as early as possible, you try to be helpful to someone by providing them some kind of value. And what that means for people like myself is to avoid feeling salesy. I've always loved helping people, and I've always loved meeting people. So I know that those are some of my strengths. My favorite alternative to the Reddit approach is value-based networking. All that is meeting people and providing some kind of help to them as early as possible. It's an approach that gives me the opportunity to meet people and immediately try to help them. So in my particular case, I'm interested in building a B2B business. That means I need to go figure out what problems business owners are having and how I can solve them. I can go out and talk to business owners, but like Reddit, a lot of them have their guard up immediately. And that barrier needs to be addressed. And the way I think you can address that barrier is by building trust. So when I meet someone who's a business owner and I genuinely want to learn about their path as an entrepreneur, I start having a conversation with them and naturally ask about the problems that they solve. While that's happening, I very organically try to help them solve some of those problems, because a lot of those problems end up being data problems. And since I have a certain amount of expertise in data engineering and data science, I try to leverage that in order to help those people with those problems. It might not always be a clean and clear solution in the form of some kind of product. A lot of times it ends up being some kind of piece of advice or a framework to use, or just a different way of thinking about the problem, looking at it through the lens of a data professional. But ultimately, I'm throwing those things out there and it's take it or leave it. If you don't like it, you don't have to listen to it. If you do like it, I'm not charging you for it. In fact, I'd probably want to talk to you more about it. And it's that trust building process that I think is incredibly important. That's something that the Reddit approach completely ignores. All this process is doing is building trust through helping somebody without asking for anything in return. Eventually, that starts to build enough trust where it turns into a relationship, where I, as a very early entrepreneur, am able to meet business owners, ask them how they started, all the questions that I would like answers to, and also provide help to them. Because I think that any relationship should be a two-way street. And in that process, it's able to open my eyes to problems that business owners are having. There's an argument to be made that I might be able to find an idea for a business through those conversations. But even if I don't ultimately end up finding a business idea from any of those conversations, I think it's immeasurably valuable to build those kinds of relationships. Another great side effect of the value-based networking approach is the network effect. So as you go around and you start meeting people and building these relationships, you're ultimately able to tap into their network, and they're ultimately able to tap into your network. I've been using this approach for the past few weeks, and there's a couple examples that I think are pretty interesting. The first one is I saw a local restaurant group posting about their interactions with AI. I thought that was interesting, and being a data professional who's pretty well versed in AI, I just sent a direct message on Instagram. I reached out to them and that turned into a conversation, and we've been having about a month's worth of conversations right now where I learn about their business, their approach, and I just give them free advice about the data platforms that they're using. And that ends up being a pretty great relationship. I'm helping them. Another cool example is a glass company in my neighborhood that I've walked past a million times as I walk my lovely little dogs. And I thought, oh, I wonder how that business operates. I wonder how that business started. Just general questions that I think whenever I look at a new business. And I decided I would go in there and ask to speak to the owner. Then 3 weeks passed by and I still hadn't done it, which pissed me off so much to the point where there was one day I was sitting at this desk and I realized that I hadn't walked in to talk to the owner yet. And I just got so pissed off that I was dragging this thing out that I immediately got up and I walked over and went to speak with the owner. It was cool because the owner agreed to speak with me. It hasn't happened yet. I'm trying to figure out a time to speak to them, but we'll see how that turns out. Another cool example is for my business Artsy Pets. I have a vendor event that I'm going to in a week or so where there's going to be something like 25 businesses there just trying to sell stuff for like a fall shopping festival. I thought that's a great opportunity for the business, but also for myself. That's going to put me in a room with 25 plus business owners, and that's a great opportunity to network. I don't know how well that's going to work out because you have to remember everyone's going to be at the event trying to sell stuff. So who knows how easy it'll be to have those conversations, but I'm definitely going to approach as many of these people as I can to strike up conversations and use that value-based networking approach where I will introduce myself, I'll have a quick conversation with them, and if there's any bits of information I can give them that will help them, I won't hesitate to do it, and who knows what will come of it. What I love so much about the value-based networking approach is it feels incredibly genuine to who I am. I've always been someone who loves helping people, and I've always loved meeting people. It left me wanting to find a way that makes more sense for me, and the value-based networking felt like such a natural fit. And so far, the results have been pretty interesting. There's nothing definitive yet because it's so early on in the process, but I think this feels like a right way to do things, and we'll see what happens. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please feel free to leave a comment. Please like and subscribe. It makes a huge difference for people like myself, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.